Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Today we are going to untangle a company that's pretty central to the tech we use every day, but that I'm willing to bet most people have never even heard of.
Yeah, I'd say that's a safe bet. ASML. Kind of a hidden giant in a way.
So let's bring them out into the light. What do they do?
In the simplest terms, they build the machines that make chips. And when I say chips, I mean those tiny little brains that are inside our phones, computers, cars. I mean, pretty much everything these days, right?
Okay, so we're talking seriously foundational tech here.
Oh, absolutely. You can't have the digital world without chips, and you can't have the most advanced chips without ASML.
All right, well, I'm intrigued. I definitely want to go deeper on this. What's our game plan for this deep dive?
Well, we've got a stack of their annual reports, some industry analysis, a few articles, the usual.
That sounds good. So where do we start?
Well, I think the best place to start is with their core business model.
Okay, so like how they actually make money.
Exactly. ASML's primary revenue stream comes from selling these incredibly complex machines called lithography systems.
Lithography systems. I've heard that term before, but honestly, I couldn't tell you what it actually means.
So basically, imagine an incredibly precise projector, but instead of projecting images onto a screen, it's projecting circuits onto silicon wafers.
Ah, so these are the tools that actually print the chips.
Precisely. And they're not your average office printer. These things cost millions of dollars each.
Millions. Okay, starting to see why they're a hidden giant if they're selling million-dollar machines.
Yeah. And the demand is only going up.
So who's buying these things? Who are their customers?
Their customers are basically who's who of the semiconductor industry. Companies like Intel, Samsung, TSMC.
Oh, wow, the big leagues.
Yeah, the companies that are constantly pushing to create smaller, more powerful chips. The ones that end up in all our devices.
So in a way, they're kind of fueling our, addiction to faster phones and better laptops and all that.
You could say that, yeah. Our demand for more powerful tech is what's driving ASML's business. And to meet that demand, they offer a range of different lithography systems.
Okay, so not all lithography systems are created equal.
Right. They have what are called DUV systems, which stands for deep ultraviolet. Those are kind of the workhorses used for less critical layers in the chip. And then there's their, I guess you could call it their crown jewel, the EUV systems.
EUV, that's the one I've seen in the headlines.
Yep, that's the one. Extreme ultraviolet. It's a completely different type of light source that allows for printing even smaller features on the chips.
So more transistors packed into the same space, which means
More processing power, faster, more efficient chips. It's been a major driver of their revenue growth in recent years.
but I imagine it's also pretty expensive to develop and manufacture.
Oh, for sure. EUV is a very complex technology. But before we get too deep into the costs, it's probably helpful to step back and look at the big picture. What's the value proposition that ASML offers to its customers? Why are these companies willing to shell out millions of dollars for these machines?
Well, I mean, we've been kind of dancing around it, but I think it all boils down to that insatiable demand for smaller, more powerful chips, right?
Exactly. And ASML is giving chip makers the tools to meet that demand. They're essentially enabling the progress of the entire tech industry. It's a direct link from their technology to the performance of our devices. And it's not just about selling machines, it's about offering a holistic solution.
Holistic solution. What does that even mean when we're talking about, these super advanced machines?
So, in addition to the lithography systems themselves, ASML also provides metrology and inspection systems.
Okay, hold on. Metrology and inspection. Break that down for me.
All right, so think of metrology as measuring things with incredible precision at a nanoscale level. And inspection is all about finding any, even tiny defects.
So basically like quality control, but on a microscopic level.
Precisely. And by integrating these systems with their lithography systems, they're helping chip makers optimize the entire chip-making process, from design to manufacturing.
So they're really involved in the whole ecosystem, not just providing a piece of equipment. Okay, I think I'm starting to grasp the scope of what ASML does.
Now remember, this is all just scratching the surface.
I believe it. So we've got this company, ASML. They're making these ridiculously expensive, high-tech machines that are crucial for the entire tech industry. But the question that pops into my mind is, with so much riding on this tech, why aren't there more companies competing in this space? What makes ASML so unique?
That's the million, or I guess billion-dollar question, right? Well, the simple answer is that ASML is the only company in the world that can produce EUV lithography systems. And those, as we've talked about, are essential for making the most advanced chips.
So they have a monopoly.
Well, it's not a complete monopoly, but they do have a near monopoly on this critical technology, which gives them a very powerful position in the market.
Yeah, I bet it does. So that must make them a very attractive partner for these chip makers.
Absolutely. It's a bit of a delicate dance, though. They have this dominant position, but they also understand that their success is tied to the success of the entire industry. They're actually very focused on collaboration, working closely with chip makers, suppliers, research institutions. It's a pretty unique dynamic.
Yeah, sounds like it. But making these amazing machines is only part of the story, right?
Yeah.
What are some of their other critical activities, the things that, keep ASML running smoothly?
Oh, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. We've touched on R&D, which is obviously massive for a company like this. But then you have supply chain management, customer support, talent acquisition and retention. It's a complex operation.
All right, well, I'm ready to dive into all that. Let's take a closer look at the inner workings of ASML and see what makes them tick.
So we've got this picture of ASML now, this powerhouse in the chip making world, churning out these super sophisticated machines. But I mean, nothing's perfect, right? There's got to be some downsides, some risks they face.
Right. I mean, especially with a company that's so global and dealing with such, I don't know, sensitive technology, I guess you could say.
Absolutely. And actually, their annual reports, they lay out a whole, like a laundry list of potential risks. Everything from, geopolitical tensions to supply chain issues, intellectual property theft, the whole nine yards.
Okay, let's unpack some of that. Let's start with, the geopolitical stuff. What kind of risks are we talking about there?
Well, you got to remember their technology, especially those EUV systems, it's considered, pretty sensitive stuff. So just exporting these machines, it requires special licenses from the Dutch government.
Ah, so they can't just like ship these things wherever they want.
Nope. And even getting those licenses, it's not always a slam dunk. Governments around the world, they're getting more and more concerned about who has access to this kind of cutting edge tech.
Yeah, I can see that. It's like who has the most advanced chips? It's kind of a big deal these days.
Oh, yeah, it's a huge deal. And so ASML, they're kind of stuck in the middle, trying to balance their business interests with all these political realities.
It's like they're walking a tightrope.
That's a good way to put it. And it gets even trickier when you factor in, the tensions between some of the big players in the industry, like the US and China.
Right, like ASML could get caught in the crossfire there.
Exactly. They could face pressure from, one government or another to limit or even stop sales to certain regions or companies.
And that could really hit their bottom line, right?
Mm.
Especially if they lose access to like a major market like China.
Oh, for sure. Geopolitical risks are a constant headache for ASML. All right, let's shift gears for a second. Remember how we were talking about ASML's reliance on certain suppliers, like sometimes even just one supplier for a crucial component?
Yeah, that stuck with me. It seemed kind of risky to be so dependent,
Well, yeah, because any kind of disruption at one of those key suppliers, it could throw a wrench in the whole operation, right?
right? Like if there's a natural disaster or a pandemic or even just, I don't know, some production delays.
Yep, all of that. And we're not talking about like ordering some basic parts off Amazon here. These are super specialized components. Sometimes they're custom made, and lead times can be really long.
So any delay could mean big financial losses, not just for ASML, but also for their customers who are waiting for these machines.
Exactly. And as demand for their systems keeps skyrocketing, those risks just get amplified.
So what are they doing about it? Like, are they trying to, I don't know, diversify their suppliers or something?
They are, yeah. I mean, they're trying to strengthen relationships with their current suppliers, maybe find alternatives where they can, build up some inventory of key parts just in case. They're also working on improving their internal processes, just to make things more efficient and hopefully more resilient.
So basically like a multi-pronged approach to, I don't know, batten down the hatches and weather the storm.
Yeah, something like that. But, even with the best planning, there's always going to be some level of uncertainty. And that's not the only risk they're dealing with. ASML also talks a lot about intellectual property theft in their reports.
Hold on, intellectual property theft. Are we talking like corporate espionage here?
Yeah, I mean, their technology is so valuable. It's a prime target for, competitors or even countries who want to get their hands on their trade secrets.
That's kind of wild to think about. Like, are there really corporate spies trying to steal ASML's blueprints?
Well, maybe not like in the movies,
Yeah.
but the threat is real. That's why they invest a ton in security, trying to protect their intellectual property. But it's a constant battle.
Okay, so we've got geopolitics, supply chain risks, and now spies. What else? Is there anything else keeping the ASML execs up at night?
Well, like any company, they face financial risks too. For example, they're exposed to fluctuations in currency exchange rates.
Yeah, that makes sense. They're operating globally, so they're dealing with different currencies all the time.
Right. A big chunk of their costs are in euros, but they make a lot of their revenue in US dollars. So if those exchange rates shift a lot, it can mess with their profits.
So even though they're at the cutting edge of technology, they're still subject to like the basic realities of global finance.
For sure. And then, there's the risks that come with their own growth. They've been expanding like crazy, and that can create its own set of challenges.
Yeah, growing pains. But I imagine the growing pains for a company like ASML are on a whole different level.
Oh, absolutely. Ramping up production that quickly, finding enough qualified workers, making sure their systems can handle all the added complexity, it's a lot to manage.
But from what you're saying, it sounds like they're at least aware of these risks. They're not just ignoring the potential problems.
No, they seem to be taking a pretty proactive approach. They're trying to identify challenges early on and figure out ways to, mitigate the risks.
All right, well, that's good to hear. They're not just burying their heads in the sand.
Not at all. Okay, let's shift gears again. Let's talk about sustainability. It's a big topic these days, especially for tech companies.
Yeah, for sure. And from what I've read, ASML seems to be taking it pretty seriously.
Yeah, they've set some ambitious goals for themselves. Like they want to achieve net zero waste going to landfills by 2030 and net zero emissions across their entire value chain by 2040.
Okay, so those are some big long-term goals. But what are they actually doing to get there?
Well, it's a multi-pronged approach, like a lot of their strategies. They're trying to use less energy in their operations, get more of their energy from renewable sources, even design their machines to be more energy efficient.
Well, they're trying to be more sustainable themselves, but also help their customers be more sustainable.
Right. They're embracing the idea of a circular economy, reusing parts, refurbishing older machines, even buying back machines from customers to like harvest the
So
components.
less waste, making the most of the resources they use. Makes sense.
And they're not just focused on themselves, they're also working with their suppliers to encourage sustainable practices throughout the supply chain.
So they recognize that their impact goes beyond their own operations.
Yeah, exactly. And they're not just talking about environmental sustainability either. They're also investing in things like STEM education and supporting local communities, trying to be socially responsible as well.
It's good to hear that they're looking at the bigger picture. Okay, so we've covered their risks, their sustainability efforts. What about their corporate governance? How they make sure things are run ethically and transparently.
Right. Well, since ASML is a Dutch company, they follow the Dutch Corporate Governance Code, which is known for being pretty strict.
Okay, and what does that mean in practice? Like, how does that shape their governance?
Well, for one thing, they have a diverse supervisory board. There's a good mix of men and women, people from different countries. So you can see that they're committed to having different perspectives at the table.
Diversity is always a good sign.
Definitely. And their board of management is set up pretty traditionally with a CEO, CFO, and a few executive VPs who oversee different parts of the business.
Makes sense. What about how they pay their executives? Is that aligned with their long-term goals and values?
Yeah, they've got a system where executive pay is tied to performance. It's not just about how much money they make, but also things like technological innovation and even sustainability targets.
So they're incentivizing the executives to think about more than just profits.
That's right. And they have something called a clawback provision, which
Yeah.
basically means if an executive does something wrong, they might have to give back some of their bonuses. So there's some accountability built in there.
Yeah, it's like, don't even think about messing up.
Pretty much.
Ah,
And to make sure everyone's on the straight and narrow, they've got a strong internal audit team and they're really focused on following all the laws and
it
regulations.
sounds like they're taking corporate governance pretty seriously.
They are. They get it. They know that if they want investors, customers, employees to trust them, they got to have good governance.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We talked about their business model, the risks they face, their sustainability efforts, their approach to corporate governance. This has been a pretty deep dive into how ASML works.
It has. And I think it's really interesting, right? How this company that most people haven't heard of is actually playing such a big role in shaping the future of tech.
Absolutely. But there's still one piece of the puzzle missing. We need to look at their financial performance. Let's wrap this up by seeing what the numbers tell us about ASML's trajectory.
All right, so we've dug into the nitty gritty of ASML, how they operate, the challenges they face, all that. But now let's get to the The really juicy stuff. Let's talk numbers.
Yeah, let's see if all this innovation and, careful planning is actually translating into financial success.
Oh,
What's the verdict? Are they making money?
oh, they're making money, all right. And then some. I mean, their growth has been phenomenal, really. Like in the past 5 years, their revenue has practically doubled.
Doubled? Okay, that's impressive. But revenue's only part of the story. What about their profitability? Are they actually turning a profit from all those million-dollar machines?
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Yeah.
Their gross margins are consistently above 50%, which is pretty amazing for a company in such a complex and, capital-intensive industry.
So they're not just staying afloat, they're like crushing it.
Yeah.
What's the secret sauce? What's driving this success?
Well, it's a few things, really. I mean, first of all, you've got this massive global demand for semiconductors. I mean,
Hmm.
everything is getting smarter, more connected, which means we need more and more chips. And those chips need to be more powerful, more efficient. So that demand, it just keeps pushing ASML's business forward.
It's like they're riding a wave and it just keeps getting bigger.
Exactly. And they're not just riding the wave, they're the ones who are, kind of making the surfboards. They have that near monopoly on the technology that's needed to make those super advanced chips.
Yeah, that's got to give them a huge advantage.
It does, but it's not just about being in the right place at the right time. ASML, they've been investing heavily in R&D for years. They've been playing the long game, constantly pushing the limits of what's possible with lithography, and now those investments, they're starting to pay off big time.
It's a good reminder that sometimes, you got to be willing to invest for the long haul. So what's the outlook? Do the analysts think ASML can keep this up?
Pretty much, yeah. The consensus is definitely optimistic. ASML has set some pretty ambitious revenue targets for the next few years, like they're aiming for somewhere between 30 to 40 billion euros in revenue by 2025. And by 2030, they're shooting for, get this, 44 to 60 billion. And most analysts think those targets are actually achievable, given how the semiconductor market is going and ASML's, technological lead.
So they're not just keeping pace with the industry, they're basically shaping it.
Yeah, pretty much. But,
Yeah.
we got to remember ASML's success isn't just about what they do internally. They've also been really strategic about forming partnerships.
Oh, yeah, let's talk about that. Which partnerships are we talking about here?
Well, the big one is their relationship with a company called Carl Zeiss SMT. They've been working together for ages, and Zeiss is their main supplier for the optics, the lenses and mirrors and stuff that are used in those lithography systems.
So it's a pretty critical partnership. Like, they both need each other to succeed.
Exactly. They've even got this official agreement that lays out their collaboration, how they're going to finance things, even a commitment to, keep working together indefinitely.
Wow, that's serious.
Yeah.
Any other partnerships worth mentioning?
Yeah, they also work really closely with their customers, the chip makers themselves. They do joint development projects, to make sure that the machines are meeting the industry's specific needs, which are always changing, of course.
That's smart.
Eh.
Involving your customers in the development process, make sure you're actually building something they'll use.
Yep, exactly. And they extend that collaborative approach beyond just their direct customers. They work with suppliers, research partners, universities. It's a whole ecosystem of innovation that they've built.
So it sounds like collaboration is like a core part of ASML's culture.
Yeah.
They recognize that they can't do it all alone.
Exactly. And that's a good lesson for, any company, really,
Hmm.
especially in such a fast-paced and complex industry. So we've covered a lot of ground here. What are your main takeaways? What are you walking away with from this deep dive into ASML?
I think what's striking to me is how this company, that most people have never even heard of, is playing such a huge role in all the technology we use every day. Like they're this unseen force behind the scenes, making all these digital advancements possible.
That's a great point. It shows how innovation can happen, in places you wouldn't expect, driven by companies that are laser focused on, like
Yeah.
really pushing the boundaries.
And it also highlights how interconnected everything is. Technology, geopolitics, finance, sustainability, it's all tied together. And if you want to succeed in today's world, you got to be aware of all of it, not just, focus on the tech itself.
Yeah, well said. ASML's story is proof that long-term thinking, strategic partnerships, and a strong commitment to ethics are just as important as having the best technology.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a fascinating journey exploring the world of ASML. And I think we've all learned a lot about this, complex but also surprisingly relatable company. But as we wrap up this deep dive, here's something to think about. We've seen how crucial ASML is to the semiconductor industry. But as AI and other technologies continue to evolve, at this breakneck speed, What does the future hold for ASML? Can they maintain their dominance, or are there, disruptors lurking around the corner? Something to ponder.
Great questions. And that's the beauty of technology, right? It's always evolving.
Hmm.
And how ASML adapts to those changes will determine their fate. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep learning.